afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sirs and ma'am.
Good afternoon, please.
Thank you, sir.
Nithiya?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Nithiya, as I can see, you are from Kerala.
I was born there, sir.
Yeah.
I've been brought up in Bangalore.
Okay. So you have done BA in Combined Humanities Literature,
Yes, sir.
History and Philosophy.
Yes.
Okay. And your optionals are Sociology.
Yes, sir.
You have a long list of achievements and hobbies. So you take part in race and trekking, and you've also been looking after the migrant workers
Yes, sir.
cause. Sports for development.
Yes, sir.
Now, which development? Physical development, or what exactly is the development?
Sports for development. This is specifically talking about social development.
Okay. Social development.
Yes, sir.
So why the word sports?
So it's an upcoming field. It's shortened as S4D. It's a field which uses sports as a tool to achieve various goals of social development, such as inclusion, gender equality, teaching life skills, bringing peace in conflicted societies.
Okay. Traveling to rural NGOs for and also self-improvement.
Yes,
You're
sir.
fond of that also. So you have given IAS and IFS and income tax and then audit and accounts, and police is at number 5.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Nitya, tell me, do you think that family as an institution has failed in India now?
No, sir. I would not go so far as to say it has failed. It is changing definitely, but it has not failed.
So what changes have come about over the years?
So the definition of family commonly previously it would have been taught in a very heteronormative way, first of all. And secondly, joint families were much more common. Now both those definitions are changing. For instance, nuclear family is becoming more common, or nuclear or joint mixed structures of family are becoming more common. And the option of a single parent family, or homosexual relationship or live-in relationship, such kind of setups are also becoming more and more acceptable.
Okay. When you talked about adoption of children, you just now, did you mention that?
I did not, sir, but thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So now, when we talk about adoption of children, so there is an institution at Government of India which regulates the adoption.
Yes, sir.
Now, can you tell me some basic things connected with that institution, and what are the principles on which adoption can take place?
Yes, sir. The institution is CARA, and it's recently also there have been changes in that institution regarding adoption, and it has allowed for more easy processes for adoption of children, and it is mainly a child protection body, sir.
What is HAMA?
I'm sorry, sir. Could you repeat?
HAMA, HAMA.
Sir, I'm not aware, sir.
Okay, is not. Now, let me give you an example of hypothetical situation. Supposing you are posted as collector of a district.
Yes, sir.
When you qualify civil service, and you are supervising the distribution of pension to the old age. Now, there is a lady, you know it, she appears to be about 80 years old and should be otherwise eligible, but she does not possess the documents. So she is in a way ineligible, but otherwise she appears to be totally eligible. She belongs to that age and you really want to help her. What will you do as collector? Will you refuse granting that pension to her, or any other thing which you can do to ensure that she gets pension? What exactly? You are in a dilemma. You want to help her, but she does not possess those documents. What will you do?
Yes. So definitely this would be a dilemma situation. The first thing I would do is to try to get the documents for her if possible, in concern with by working with the necessary authorities. If I can get them to accelerate the process and ensure that the
They are
documents
not available.
Okay, sir. In that case, I would try to go ahead. I would speak to my superiors first about this, and try to ask them permission to go ahead in this case to make an exception and grant her the pension, but ensure that this is on record, because the ultimate aim of the pension is to help vulnerable people of that particular age group which she qualifies. But I would ensure that all of this would be on record and with the approval of my superiors.
Okay. This present government, when it came to power,
Yes, sir.
then it launched many schemes and programs, and it talked about smart cities. Now, what is a smart city?
Sir, a smart city is one in which digital technology is incorporated into various services, and various different services are integrated so as to improve the convenience of those who are living in that city.
So, since 2014, this is 2022. Can you name any particular city which has really emerged as a smart city in this country?
Sir, I'm not entirely sure there's any which has fulfilled it, but there have been different attempts in various cities.
Why this program has really not taken off?
Sir, one reason I would speculate is that by definition, that program requires coordination between various services. And that is something that the government could work on. That is interoperability between different departments. So that is, if that could be boosted, then this program could take off, I believe so.
What is Competition Commission of India?
Sir, it is a body, a statutory body that is created to ensure that no anti-competitive practices or monopolistic practices take place in India. So it is put in place for the Competition Act of 2002, sir.
So nowadays we see in the telecom sector also that there are predatory agents, tendencies on part of many big companies. Can you name one such company which has that predatory tendencies, and in a way it is wiping out the competition from the field at all totally?
So one could be Reliance's Jio.
Yeah, and yet this ultimately there will be no competitor left. So these are the so-called predatory agencies. Last question to you: what is change management, and why it is important in government?
Sir, change management.
Change management.
Change.
Have you ever heard about change management?
Sir, no, sir. I'll have to read about that.
You can go and read about it. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You have mentioned about the migrant, you were dealing with the issue of migrants during COVID.
Yes, sir.
What were the problems they were facing during COVID times?
Sir, the biggest problem was faced when the lockdown was announced. That is, they had migrated to many cities for employment, but the work was shut down, so they were not receiving any income. At the same time, their expenses, such as for food or for shelter, these expenses were still continuing to add up. So, and thirdly, they did not have any social capital with them, which many other local people could have had. So, they were facing many difficulties.
Then what happened ultimately?
Sir, after about a month and a half, the lockdown was slowly opened, but at the same time, Shramik trains, special trains were released for migrant workers to travel. But in the meantime, many workers unable to handle that situation often took the decision to walk long distances home or took any mode of transport possible.
What happened after COVID to these workers?
Sir, many of them ultimately ended up returning to the cities for work because the push factors that led them to migrate in the first place, which is lack of employment in their home areas, those reasons continued to exist. So many of them ended up coming back to the cities, I believe.
So what was the learning from this emergency? What has been our learning and what improvements have been made
Sir, I think
to address this problem so that it is not repeated in future?
yes, sir. Sir, I think the learnings could be of three types. First is
But do you think there is learning? Suppose tomorrow something happens of similar nature, this will be repeated. Don't you think?
Yes, sir. I think there is a chance that migrant workers are still a vulnerable group in society, but I definitely think there have been learnings. So, for example, case like the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, that is something which will help workers. And the PM Ujjwala Yojana, the second round of that, has allowed for migrant workers. It makes it easier for them to take a card and avail gas facility even in a new place. So such schemes have been put in place, and I believe there have been learnings.
They are sufficient to take care of their requirements.
Not entirely sufficient, sir, but as starting steps, I think these are important steps, especially in food security. If they can access ration, that is one big basic need that is taken care of, sir.
What is decentralization?
So it's a process of allotting power in a way that is not only in the hands of a central authority, but to lower levels of government, such as state or local bodies or lower.
For example,
A Panchayati Raj system is one example.
and then what is democratic decentralization?
So it is ensuring that decentralization happens till the level of common citizens in a way that boosts democracy.
Example,
So in the same case of Panchayati Raj system, people are directly involved
so
in.
the Panchayati Raj institutions are example of first one or second one?
So a democratic decentralization would be a type of decentralization, I think.
See, I asked what is decentralization.
Yes,
You
sir.
gave the example of Panchayati Raj institutions.
Yes, sir.
Then I asked the democratic decentralization. Again, you gave the same example. So, do you think it is same or there is a difference?
Sir, I'll have to think more about that.
Yeah, it is different.
Okay,
So
sir.
just read about it.
Yes, sir. Thank
Acha,
you.
tell me, when we elect a government, so there are high hopes actually from that government. That you see, in masses. What people expect from a government? What are the general expectations of a government?
Sir, that it would ease many aspects of their living. For example, a common expectation is that prices of many items, for example, fuel or food, that inflation would be controlled. That is a common expectation. And second, that, for example, if unemployment is high in that region, that provisions be made for employment to be done. So the social issues in that region should be addressed, and especially the claims that those parties have made before the election in their manifesto. There's also an expectation that those should be fulfilled.
So they are addressed after they are elected. Do you think they are elected? The problems which you narrated, do you think they are ever addressed?
So I don't think they are addressed fully.
For
Definitely.
example, give one or two examples. Say, give one or two examples of fuel prices.
Sir, many parties in the campaigning phase make the claim that they will ensure that fuel prices.
No. It is after actually they are elected. I'm asking about actually their expectation and what happens after they are elected.
Sir,
Do they address these issues or they don't address or they can't address?
I think there are constraints in their addressing. They are often faced with other challenges and they're
But that's why
unable
this
to.
government, that's why we elect them.
Yes, sir.
Because we are not able to solve them. It's supposed to be solved by the government. So then what is your view about the government? What happens to the entire election process and the aspirations of the masses?
Sir, I think some of the aspirations are definitely met or steps are taken towards these. Even if change cannot be seen, some of these aspects require a larger amount of time for the change to be seen. So steps are definitely taken, and they cannot be taken in all areas. So it depends from each situation to situation.
So by this logic, the poor people should cross the poverty line and they should become more like, you see, they should be able to afford education, health and all, employment they should get.
Yes.
Is it happening in India?
Sir, all people achieving health.
Not all, but majority of them.
Sir, I would say there is a majority that is still left out, but at the same time, the efforts to make health, education, livelihoods accessible, the efforts are definitely increasing. So it is not that the promises are not being looked at all. Definitely efforts are being made, and slowly the reach is increasing and widening.
So the inequality is reducing.
Sir, due to in the context of COVID, inequality has undergone a shift, and inequality has increased greatly, even according to the World Inequality Report. But now that India is recovering, hopefully it will reduce. Thank you, sir.
You talked of change. Do you believe that caste-based census should take place?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
What 3 points in favor of it?
Ma'am, one is it gives the accurate data about the situation on the ground, and the second thing is that it can clarify claims within for reservation within reservation. For example, there may be groups like 1 years who are demanding reservation within the MBC. So to clarify this, we need data as well. And the third is that it brings about transparency. Caste often becomes a topic that's sidelined, and only larger groups, general castes, scheduled castes, these categories are spoken of. But there needs to be more transparency into what is happening within the caste, and how only certain castes within that are able to access benefits like reservation.
So, why is there so much of resistance? What are the disadvantages of a caste-based census?
Ma'am, it has the danger that it could become politicized. That's one. Once the results are out, it could become political parties could use it, or people could use it to discriminate against each other and rigidify caste lines. And secondly, the process of caste enumeration itself becomes quite difficult.
What do you say to the caste-based violence? Is that a reality?
Yes,
or is
ma'am.
even that will evaporate with this?
No, ma'am, it cannot. This would not be any magic solution. This would just give us information with which to better inform other policies. So, caste-based violence is a reality, and it needs to be tackled on various grounds.
Which is the amendment bill which came about last year on the caste census? Okay, doesn't matter.
Sorry, ma'am.
Do you still think that this will kind of help us tackle the issue of discrimination against some of the weaker castes, or it will kind of aggravate once you are identified?
Ma'am, I think there is a risk of it happening both ways. So, I think a careful balance is needed, but it definitely has potential to improve the position of weaker castes if it is used correctly.
Okay, you spoke of migrant labor.
Yes, ma'am.
Migrant labor is both skilled and unskilled.
Yes, ma'am.
So, how do you think the pandemic affected the skilled labor? I'm not talking of the unskilled labor which walked miles and miles to get back to their villages, but the skilled labor.
Again, depending on the class or the nature of their work, the effect was different. But if I can take one specific example of, say, those in the IT industry, as many of them are skilled workers, especially coming from my town, Bangalore. And for many of them, there was some economic uncertainty, but largely job security was relatively more stable as the shift moved to online services and online work from home. So largely their economic situation was more secure than the unskilled workers.
Reverse brain drain?
Sorry, ma'am?
Reverse brain drain.
Yes, ma'am. Also, that brain drain is the concept that those who study in India or Indian intellectuals go abroad for work, but due to the pandemic, many of them ended up returning back to India. So that was also one.
So for them also there was equal insecurity?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now you say that you've been working for trust. Yes?
Yes, ma'am. Puriyadur.
What exactly does it do?
They are working in the area of education and development. For about 15 to 18 years now, they've been running after-school programs for students, especially focusing on foundational literacy, boosting it, but also on extracurriculars.
So you are the program coordinator. What exactly is your role in that?
I was the program coordinator for the Youth Advancement Program. That is for the alumni of the existing program that ran till 10th standard. We wanted to create a new program that is more suited to youth, that is, which can capture their energy and give them what they need. So we created a fellowship that gave them employability skills such as spoken English and digital literacy, and also made them do a project that gave back to their communities. while also helping them to follow their passion and identify some area.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Nitya, you in your BA studies, philosophy was one of your subjects.
Yes, sir.
Can you name the 6 schools of Indian philosophy?
Yes, sir. Samkhya, Nyaya,
Mimamsa.
Mimamsa.
Mhm.
Sir, I'm unable to recall at the
Okay, no
moment.
problem.
Sorry.
And what is the basic construct of Sankhya philosophy? What are the fundamentals, 2 or 3, of Sankhya?
Sir, I'm unable
No.
to recall at the moment.
Okay, no problem. Now, how do you see India 10 years from today? We are in 22 now. Say in 32, what would India look like? What is your vision? What do you think it would look like?
Sir, I would hope for 3 areas of changes.
Mhm.
First is in education, that the changes we have seen recently in enrollment in education should carry through to enrollment in higher education, educational outcomes, and especially skilling. So, in the area of education, I
So
would
you think there
envision
would
that.
be much more improvement in education sector?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Secondly, in the context of health, especially in the aftermath of the pandemic,
Mhm.
we have increased our focus on improving healthcare.
Mhm.
So, extending that, primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare should be available, hopefully universally. That is
Okay.
one more. And the third would be in the area of women empowerment.
Mhm.
I would hope that in their participation in education and in the workforce would
Mhm.
increase, and also see more women in positions of leadership.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So any other changes?
So,
Do you see India economically stronger, politically stronger? Do
yes,
you
sir.
see anything else?
Yes, sir. Definitely, India's economy, I would see that it would be improving, and given its international position also now, its growing power. By that time, it would be much more larger power. I feel.
Okay. Now, there has been a lot of talk and, in fact, write-ups on United Nations Security Council reforms.
Yes, sir.
This topic has been going on for at least 20 years now. And the existing powers, the 5 permanent members, they don't want to give up their power
Yes.
and admit new ones. So, do you think any reforms are possible in UNSC anytime in the future?
Sir, I think reforms are possible in any multilateral institution.
Mhm.
There has been some responsiveness, so definitely there is a potential for change. And certainly now there are more countries, for example, Japan or South Africa, which are backing India's call for reforms.
Mhm.
And even countries within the current P5 are open to have expressed some openness to allowing the expansion. So I think change can happen, sir.
You think it can happen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you live in Karnataka.
Yes, sir.
There has been some hijab controversy in the schools and colleges in some parts of Karnataka recently.
Yes, sir.
What is your opinion on that? Should they be allowed to use hijab in your schools and colleges, or should the uniforms should stay as they are?
Sir, I think it is definitely a complex issue that brings in topics of gender as well as religion, as education. So, my opinion is that the dialogue around religion and clothing and gender, this dialogue should continue. But as of now, the priority should be education. That right should not be compromised at any cost. So, I think that should be given the priority at the moment.
So you mean to say that there should be a freedom for anybody to wear what they want to wear in these colleges?
No, sir. That's not what I'm saying.
Mm.
There should be a mutually agreed. There should be a consensus in any institution about what is the acceptable dress code or what is the acceptable behavior in that place, and that should be reached. Now that there is some controversy around it,
Mhm.
some agreement should be reached through dialogue. I am not saying that anybody can wear anything.
Okay. Now, in the context of Ukraine and Russian, violence or what you can conflict, The Western countries are putting pressure on India not to import Russian oil and gas. Firstly, is this kind of pressure justified? Secondly, what should be India's response?
Sir, I think this pressure is justified given the fact that the West has committed to imposing any kinds of sanctions on Russia as well as any other countries that are supporting Russia. It is understandable that the West would take any steps within their control to bring a sort of influence on the Russians.
They will do whatever they want to do, but is it justified? I'm talking about in the context of international relations.
Sir, it is justified for them to perhaps impose, to have some pressure regarding that. That is their attempt. But India would have to look after its interests in navigating that situation, balancing both interests and considering what is important for itself in that situation.
So you think what West is doing is right? It means you're saying they are justified. So tomorrow they can do the same thing against India also. If you fight a war against Pakistan, they can impose sanctions on India and put pressure on other countries, to do X, Y, Z.
Sir, I think if the aim over there is to uphold human rights, if in the situation of war, condemning the act of war in all ways is.
You see, this kind of international pressure should come through the UN forum.
Okay, sir.
XYZ country is not justified in putting pressure on other countries.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
It has to come through an international body or a forum.
I hadn't considered that. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nithiya, let's go back to Karnataka again.
Yes.
There is always something or other simmering in the state. There was some Valentine Day issue a couple of years back. Then hijab, then now it's meat. What is happening?
Sir, I think some.
Are they related, these three events that I mentioned?
So they could be related in the sense that especially in the case of meat and in the case of hijab, it has underlying currents of communal polarization, which some areas of Karnataka have been susceptible to, despite efforts to change that. So that can be one common thread, and the other is upholding an idea of culture that has one kind of definition. So a rather conservative view of any culture, that can also be another common factor in this.
But is it justified if somebody tells me I can't eat this meat or this food or that food?
Sir, I don't think it's justified for one community to impose a certain set of norms in another community unilaterally. But it would have to be, there should be a common negotiation if all of them are part of a larger
So my
society.
question is, why Karnataka is becoming an experimental state in this?
Sir, I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it.
Okay, never mind. Now, since you are interested in sports, tell me what is Paralympics and what is Special Olympics?
So, the Paralympics it's for those who are physically disabled, and it has special sporting events with the necessary infrastructure for such people to compete on a level playing field, so to speak.
And what is Special Olympics?
Sir, I've not come across that.
It is the same thing, but for mentally retarded.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
That is for physically retarded. This is for mentally retarded.
Okay, thank you, sir.
In fact, it's going to take place in India tomorrow or day after tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. You're a student of humanities.
Yes, sir.
I don't understand this phrase, Indo-European languages. What is common?
So, for example, if we take an example of Sanskrit or Sanskrit-derived word, there are common etymology, common words like the word for mother. It can be seen across Latin or Sanskrit. Similar root is seen.
Okay, but so what? Does it imply connections? Does it imply common origin?
So it can imply that, or it can imply that there is one community that could have traveled across these places, or civilizations that spread out across this geographical expanse and had an influence on all these regions.
So that means that the origin of Sanskrit came to India, or rather, primitive Sanskrit came to India from outside.
Not necessarily.
And similarly, primitive whatever the language that generated into German and other European languages also came from outside, or some common source. Does it imply a common source from where branched out in both places?
So it cannot, I don't believe it can be only a single common source, because language it'll have many influences. So one particular influence, not necessarily source, but one influence could have been common across these regions, I believe.
Okay. And final, are the Dravidian languages connected to Indo-European languages?
Sir, I'm not sure. I'll have to.
Since you are from South,
Yes, sir.
whether Tamil or Malayalam, they are connected to Indo-European languages.
Sir, if I can take a particular example of Sanskrit, then yes, languages like Malayalam and Kannada and Telugu, they do have.
They are connected to Sanskrit,
Yes.
but are they connected to Indo-European origin?
Sir,
Are they part of Indo-European languages?
Sir, I don't think so.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Request you one clarification. Just with your permission. You have not opted for home state when it comes to IAS.
Yes, sir.
What is the reason? Karnataka is a good cadre. It is a very good cadre. What is the reasons?
Absolutely, sir. I agree. Karnataka is a good cadre, and I would definitely have liked to take that as my second option. But I felt, given my linguistic and cultural connections, as my mother tongue is also Tamil, and I have worked briefly in Tamil Nadu before, I feel I'll be able to serve better and connect with people better there. So that was my first option.
But for police, you are opting. Then the same argument, it is applicable to police.
Yes, sir. But I've actually heard about the police force of Karnataka being quite more well organized, if I may say so. So that is why.
Okay. So, Nithiya, now we'll take you back to the waiting room for a few minutes.
Sure. Yes.
And then we'll again call you for giving our feedback to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wait for a while.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Zangan.
Take a seat. So, Nithiya, first of all, let me ask you, when is your interview due?
11th April.
11th April. So, you have got about 8 days.
Yes.
1 week. Okay. So, give your views, your reaction to how you performed at the interview.
So I think content-wise, I need to read a little more. And sometimes I felt I had taken a stance, and was it the wrong stance I took, or did I take a judgment too soon? I was feeling a little intimidated like that when a follow-up question was asked. I don't know if it's true.
Okay. So, first of all, let me tell you that you are good, in fact, very good, and you can be even better.
Okay.
And your communication skills are absolutely fine, except for the fact that the flickering of eye is too much.
Okay.
So, don't have too much of flickering. Too much of scanning is fine. It's necessary so that everyone remains, in the picture. But once in a twice, it's okay. But if you have too much of flickering, that may not be desirable.
Okay.
And eye contact, yes, it is absolutely necessary. And we could find out that you were mentally alert. You were able to understand the questions, which is one of the very important qualities at the time of the interview. That you have to listen to the questions intently and then come out after thinking about it. Let it churn inside and then come out with the answer,
Yes.
which you were doing. Second was that we found that your articulation was good. Your intonation was there. Ups and downs in the voice were there. So you could express your things very well. And the structuring of sentences was good. There were no pauses, unnecessary pauses in between. So that you came out of that very well. The power of assimilation. So the pros and cons, analytical ability also you had. You were able to analyze the questions. Knowledge, yes. As you very rightly said, the knowledge in respect to some of the areas which we are going to tell you in a little while, you need to work upon them. You still have got about a week, which is quite a bit if you devote the entire time for preparation of this and that's just way of advice. Don't attend too many mock interviews.
Okay.
Okay. If you have you lined up any more mock interviews or something?
Yeah, one for Tuesday.
Okay. So what happens is sometimes a mock interview panel gives you a particular impression, and then you start brooding over it, and your confidence level goes down. But anyway, since you have already fixed it, it's okay. But I'm telling you that you are otherwise good, and you can be very, very an outstanding candidate. Other things which you were clear and logical in your answers, and power of thinking we could see. The balance of judgment was also there, and we could observe that you did not bluff at any point of time. You were honest in your answers. Your poise, your presentation, your demeanor, everything was fine, properly dressed, everything. Now tell me, at the time of interview, are you going to wear this particular dress or you are going to wear the sari?
Sari, sir.
Sari. Okay, fine. And even some of the provocative questions which we asked you, you were able to come out of it well. Now coming to the brass tacks, the questions which were asked. Now, when I asked you the question about family as an institution has failed, you can give more, information, more cogent, why you regard that family has still survived in this country,
Okay.
as compared to other countries in the world where families are breaking up.
Okay.
But in India, it is still survived because of certain reasons. And the reasons can be a joint family, the religious beliefs, and the marriage being very strong and so on. So families have still survived. So you can use this question to your advantage in impressing the panel. Number two, the old lady question, hypothetical situation when I asked you, you said, well, I will grant her, I will seek approval from my seniors. Now, understand that if she does not qualify, she does not possess those documents, then you have to carry out a fact-finding inquiry. So you will send your tehsildar or a revenue officer or any officer to verify the facts, whether she actually belongs to that category and whether she has been residing and whether she fulfills. That can be found out from verbal inquiry from nearby sources.
Okay, sir.
On the basis of that report, then you can pass
Okay.
orders on the file
Okay.
and grant her that.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.
Then coming to the smart cities have not taken off so much because there was a private investment involved there. So the private operators were to contribute more amount. The government initially came out with only 100 crores for all the smart cities in this country,
Yes.
which was peanuts. So that is why smart cities could not take off.
Okay.
And smart cities in any case means retro engineering. So the same city you have to retro engineer, which is a very difficult task. And therefore, some people suggested that instead of smart cities, you should create new cities in the
Right.
country. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Then coming to Tara, you came out with the answer. And, HAMA is the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. So you can
Okay.
study that particular thing also. Side by side, you must study the various programs, policies brought out by government of India from time to time, as well as state governments, which are work for the amelioration, improvement of the status of women, for protection of children, for protection of senior citizens, for protection of vulnerable sections of the society, the handicapped, the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes. You must study all these policies.
Okay.
One very interesting book is there, 70 policies that shaped India.
Okay.
Now, that's a concise account of every policy which has come in the last after independence. It gives a very good account. So you must study some of the public policies. And while that you can mention in the case of women, for example, Ujjwala Yojana and similarly Swachh Bharat also taking care of construction of toilets, etc. So the different section you must do. Then talking about the district administration, you must understand how the district administration works. The role of collector, role of superintendent of police, role of agricultural officer, other officers.
Okay, sir.
What are the different roles of the collector? Election, then coordination between departments, law and order, everything. Because that is something which you may be asked. How the revenue hierarchy works. You are in Bangalore, so how in Karnataka it works.
Okay.
Question will definitely be asked, likely to be asked about why you have not chosen your home state in respect of one service, though you have chosen in respect of another service.
Okay.
So you will have to prepare a good answer to that.
Okay, sir.
Also, you will have to prepare a good answer. Why do you want to come to civil service?
Yes, sir.
You must have small, very, very strong reasons why you want to come to civil service. Don't go by the normal adage which people say that I want to serve the society. That kind of answer does not give. You have to give very, very concrete reasons. A part of the public policy process, governance, creativity, leadership position, awareness, exposure. Then coming to the answer regarding decentralization, that you need to study.
Yes,
The difference between decentralization and delegation and decentralization and democratic decentralization. Also study the difference between delegation and decentralization.
Okay,
The
sir.
difference between the two. Then the question was regarding caste-based census.
Yes, sir.
So caste-based census, you pointed out certain pros and cons of this. Sometimes it may ignite also, the heartburn between the two castes also. But at the same time, you get the real facts. Now that thing we normally call as evidence-based public policy making. Go and study that. That if you have lot of evidence, then you can take very, very sound decisions while formulating a policy.
Okay.
It should not be a knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
So evidence-based policy will come through the caste, census. Though there are cons also. So you must explain both the pros and cons.
Okay.
If you explain your answer by giving both the sides of the picture, they will understand that you have the analytical ability.
Okay.
And if they ask you again that what is your view, then you can follow one particular line and say, I agree with this today because of this.
If I may ask a doubt.
Yeah.
So when you asked me in the first round that you agree with it, my answer should not have been a one line. I should have given both. Okay.
And it is the 127th constitutional amendment.
Oh, right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So then the 6 schools of Indian philosophy,
Yes.
you should
Yes,
have
sir,
remembered that
definitely.
because it finds mention also.
Yes.
Then UN Security Council, lot of things have been said regarding, for the last several years. You should know that what are the reforms which are overdue. So what exactly, in fact, in respect of all the 3 institutions, the reforms, World Bank also and others. Yeah. So that you must study. And then the sanctions, economic sanctions, etc. In fact, many questions may come because they have imposed sanctions against Russia, and now they say that if you import oil from Russia, then we are also.
Okay.
You see, you use that argument that they are justified, and when you're talking about hijab issue in Karnataka, there should be dialogue. You cannot impose one, community cannot impose unilateral things on another.
Right.
So the same thing applies in international rules
Okay.
also. One country cannot unilaterally impose sanctions on another.
Yes.
And the US has given a very stern warning to India on that.
Yes.
basis.
Yes.
So just to connect that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a very, very recent origin. So Russia, Ukraine will definitely figure in the issue. Then the question about Special Olympics, Paralympics, you should know what is the difference between and when they are going to be organized, which country they are going to be organized, and then Indo-European languages. So, that issue, which we are able to come out with that. So by and large, this is the position. You are good. There is no doubt about it. But you can definitely improve. So go back and study as much as possible. You have 1 week with you, and knowledge you should increase and have complete knowledge. Complete means depth knowledge. Normally what happens is that in the interview we follow a cafeteria approach. A bit of this, a bit of this, a bit of this. Now that ultimately may land you in trouble when a searching question is asked in the form of a supplementary as a second question.
Okay.
So then you stop. So therefore, whatever you study, go deep into it and all the aspects of it. And whenever you give an answer, always back it up with examples.
Yes.
So examples are going to strengthen your answer much more. And whenever there are controversial questions, then you should not express your opinion very, very vividly. A controversial question may be regarding corruption, it can be regarding reservation, it can be regarding women's rights, it can be regarding Article 370. There are so many issues which may be regarded as controversial. Some of the panelists may agree with one point of view, the other may not agree. So there you should actually normally follow the official line.
Okay.
Don't go against the official line. Whatever is the stand taken by the government, you say that the government has done this with a view in mind. Whether it is reservation, whether it is and corruption, for example, don't start blaming the politicians or the bureaucrats or the you have to talk about it that ultimately it is the society from where we are drawn and there are inequalities and so on. So you must give such an answer which does not unnecessarily, excite any of the panelists towards one, because then the grilling will start.
Right.
Don't allow yourself to be drawn into any such controversy. So just go back and you are good. You will do still better, and your skills are good. So your attitude is also very good, and some of the traits which I pointed out, only the knowledge part. You go back and study, and rest will be fine. And our best wishes to you that you succeed.
Thank
Any
you.
questions you have?
Yes, sir. Like regarding the approach, what you just said, if any controversial question is asked, not taking a stance directly, I just want to ask the question of the reservation, asking my stance. Was that such a question where, because I said I agreed with reservation, given that it has been the policy of the government for so long, it's in the constitution, was that a controversial question that I should have been more balanced in the first answer?
Yeah, reservation, whenever a question of reservation comes, follow the thing which started from the framers of the constitution, what purposes they had for reservation. That they have been denied, various fruits in the society, so their rights, etc. And therefore, in order to bring them at par with other people, there was a felt need for reservation, and that has still not been achieved, and therefore it has been extended from time to time. But since the framers of the constitution also imposed it for a certain limited period, which was extended, that means they had in mind that this is not going to be perpetual.
Right.
So it's still there is a need. So therefore, government has, in their own wisdom, they have decided that it should be extended and so on. So the same question can be asked
But
about.
in that you can add that after reservation, now certain communities who are in the reserved category, they've started monopolizing all the reservations,
Right.
and it is not going to the people who actually deserve. And that is why the creamy layer concept is very important, that some of the people who have already been covered by reservation should be now
Okay.
de-reserved.
Yeah, with tongue in cheek, you can say that. Yeah, that because one doesn't know who are going to be the panelists. So therefore, that is I think.
I think to be on safer side,
Yeah.
to the government line, whatever has been done by the government, that is the safe.
Okay, sir.
Because you are going there as aspirants to civil service, not an activist,
Yes, sir.
or who are challenging the policy. So you have to behave like that.
Yes, sir.
Risk
Yeah.
you should take only after you get selected.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Not now.
Risk or initiative.
Anyway.
Do a little bit on the parliamentary functioning.
Okay.
Since it is policy formulation, the thrust is policy formulation and, recommendations for policy. So how does it convert into an act then? Bill, act, just go through that.
Yes, ma'am.
So the polity part as well as economics.
Yes. Okay.
So good luck.
Thank you.
All
Thank
the
you,
best.
sir.
You will do very well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, ma'am.
Unacademy. Let's crack it.